material witness under the aggravated battery with a handgun and
the Johnny Rocket Launch Pad. And now, here's Johnny.
Hey, it's Johnny Rocket here at the Johnny Rocket Launchpad, launching ideas in your direction, a Northwest only rock and roll libertarian radio show. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Kurt Nelson.
That's right.
The voice of reason, Heather Nixon.
Hello.
And we're here with our very special guest, Jason Stapleton.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And JasonStapleton.com and TradeInPower.com. He has his own show, the Jason Stapleton Program. It's awesome. It's every day. It runs live for 45 minutes to an hour. Is that correct?
Yeah. We were running off a regular Cumulus clock for a while, but we stopped doing that because I got sick and tired of getting interrupted in the middle of a thought to have to take a commercial break. So we decided we weren't going to do that anymore.
Nice. His show is awesome. You have a great studio. Check him out at YouTube. Go to iTunes, subscribe to Jason Stapleton. Check him out. Give him a review. And also go to Stitcher. He's also on Stitcher. Awesome podcast. Great sound. Great production. Great content, man, all around. Badass shit.
Thank you.
Anyways, we have our special part of the show, and it's called Rocket Fire.
It's my favorite.
And what we do here at Rocket Fire is we're going to ask you a series of 10 questions. If you can answer these questions between 30 to 60 seconds, we'll rock and roll with the answers. And as soon as we're done, we'll give you a no prize.
I'm ready.
No
I'm ready.
prize.
And are you ready to play Rocket Fire?
Let's do it.
Question 1.
Should the government increase environmental regulations to prevent global warming?
No.
Want to expand on that?
There's no evidence that global warming is a long-term trend that's going to cause problems. And even if it was a long-term trend that you could foresee, there's absolutely zero evidence at all that they can tie to it being man-made. And even if they could tie it to being man-made, which they can't, there's no evidence that increasing the regulation and increasing or decreasing carbon emissions is going to stop whatever they think is going to happen. So there's no evidence at all to support that man is causing global warming if in fact the world is actually warming, and that too is up for debate.
What about the children though, Jason? What about the children? I'm joking.
I like this guy, man.
I know, I do too.
Question 2.
Do you support the use of hydraulic fracking to extract oil?
I don't know. I very much want to see. As long as there's no danger. I mean, I don't understand the technology about hydraulic fracking. I know that there are a lot of concerns about releasing gas pockets into water, and there have been complaints about people who've been able to set their sinks on fire, and we certainly don't want to do anything that's going to damage the economy. But I think that there's no need for extra regulation for that. What you need is you just need to hold those companies accountable that damage the water or damage the environment, and the people who are around that have been harmed, and they can seek redress of grievances in the court.
Right on.
Question 3.
Should welfare recipients be tested for drugs?
No, there should be no welfare, but if you're going to have it, there's no reason why you can't have a standard, and I think drug use would be as good a one as any. I mean, I guess I disagree with the premise of the question. What difference does it make?
All right.
Really, it's not like now they're not using drugs, so they're suddenly going to go out and get a job.
Should every person purchasing a gun be required to pass a criminal background check?
No, there's no need for that. But in fact, in Kansas, I think you may still have to pass a background check, but it's not going to require any sort of licensing at all for you to carry a concealed weapon anymore.
Nice.
I don't think that those things deter crime.
Right. I agree.
Criminals don't go to FFLs to get firearms; they get them on the street.
Right.
They steal them from houses.
Can they
So all
register
you're
those?
doing is putting an unnecessary burden on law-abiding people.
Murder is already illegal.
That's right.
It didn't make it. Yeah, it's not
and
stopped.
people still doing it.
Yeah, hasn't stopped.
All right, question
5. Who is your favorite potential candidate for 2016 president?
Ooh.
I like Rand Paul. I don't know. I'm not sure he's entirely being on the level with us. One of the things you always knew about Ron, like him, hate him, you always knew where he stood. There was no question.
Right.
He was a steady Eddie all the way through his career. And
Sure.
Rand is trying to play the political game. And I understand his feeling and necessity for that, but what you're seeing is he had a really poor performance in the beginning, and now he's turned around and he's really started to focus on that hardcore libertarian wing that voted for his dad, and he's starting to gain a little bit of traction. Poll out today, if the GOP primary was held today, 11% of the vote would go to him. He'd win, and I think he's making a good showing.
Question 6.
Should the U.S. remove God reference from currencies and federal buildings?
I don't care. It doesn't matter. Why don't you get rid of the fiat currency system? That would be nice. Government could stop its monopoly on money. That would be a good thing. But whether or not you pulled the words off the dollar bill, I could give a rip less.
Question 7.
Should terminally ill patients be allowed to end their lives?
Yes. You own your body, and if at any time you decide that you want to right-face this world, you ought to have the ability to do that. No one should stop you.
Question 8.
Should the U.S. expand oil drilling?
I don't think that the U.S. by that question infers that the government would have some sort of action in that. I think that if private companies want to drill offshore, that they should have the ability to do that if the people who own that land are willing to let them do that. Now the problem is that the government technically owns the ocean, which I think is a problem with the way our entire system is set up. But ultimately, why not?
All right, right on.
Question 9.
Should the U.S. continue to support Israel?
I don't believe in any treaties that require us to engage, to come to the military aid of another country. Okay. And so while I think in principle the Israelis have a compelling case against the Palestinians, I do not believe that the U.S. government should be supporting them financially or militarily.
Question 10.
Should there be term limits set for members of Congress?
Yes, I would be very much in favor of term limits.
Awesome. And the bonus question. Do you support President Obama's move to lift the trade and travel embargo on Cuba?
Yes, absolutely.
Right on.
I think that the free exercise, you have a right to cooperate with whoever you want to. The government shouldn't restrict you on who you cooperate with. And it hasn't worked. Most importantly is that you can't even look at it and say, well, it's worked. They're no longer communist. The dictator's gone. You know, nothing. It's had no tangible benefit. It's only been negative. Right. And you might as well get rid of it and let us try and share with them some of the economic freedom that we have and maybe push them in the direction of a little bit more political freedom.
Rocket fire! Yeah!
How'd I do?
Yeah. You got a no prize. Hey, man, that was spot on. Great job, man. Thank you very much, Jason. All right, so let's talk about bureaucracies, all right, within the federal government. This is a cool conversation piece. I just wish people would start understanding the fact that bureaucracies do not make laws. Only one in our Constitution that says who can make laws is our legislative branch, period. State and federal level, period. Where's all this power coming from? We have all these different agencies. Hey, we're the EPA. We're just going to make up shit and then start enforcing it and start charging. What the hell is going on?
No, I think that's a huge problem.
It's a huge problem.
The government, the legislative branch has relinquished its authority to these private agencies, and it was all done. Progressives are the guys who came up with it. They said, well, we need independent bodies to make these rules that don't have to concern themselves with any of the political stuff that's going on around them. It was the stupidest idea. Anybody who thought that an agency working in Washington, directly responsible for writing law and enforcing penalties, was not going to somehow fall victim to the bureaucracy and all of the trappings of big government, it was out of their mind. And I think it was intentional. I don't think it was accidental. And now you've got a senator and a congressman who pass a law, and then they turn it over to the EPA. Say, we want to reduce carbon emissions by 20%. We think that's great. So we'll sign a law mandating that happen. And then we'll send it over to the EPA, and we'll let them figure out how all that's going to happen.
Right.
And they'll write all the laws, and they'll write all the regulation, and they'll go out and make sure that it's enforced and that people are doing what they're supposed to do. And if they're not, here's the fine structure. And it basically gives a lot of unelected bureaucrats massive power and authority over your life.
Yes, and that is the biggest problem, though. You said it, Mr. Stapleton. These agencies, EPA, the whatever, NSA, the CIA, all these bureaucracies are not elected. They are making laws because they say, we're going to make a law.
Yeah, did you know that the government doesn't actually know how many agencies there are?
I didn't.
It doesn't. No, it doesn't know.
Nice.
I didn't
There
know.
have been several studies that they have tried to do to determine how many agencies there are in the federal government, and they do not know. They have no clue.
It
Awesome.
blows my mind, though. But you ask the normal person, though, they will think, oh, that's EPA's awesome. They're making the rivers clean and shit. I'm like, no, they're not. They're just hurting economic growth through bureaucracy and red tape.
In most cases, all it is I read an interesting piece one time. They said, well, they decided that they have this, they're going to store some munitions, and so they build a warehouse, and everybody thinks it's great because they hired a bunch of people to build the warehouse, and everybody got paid, and then they decided they needed to hire a security guard to protect the warehouse, so they hired the security guard. But then they need to figure out how he's going to get paid, so they have to hire 2 lackeys to keep track of his pay and make sure he gets paid on time. But then they got to make sure that he's working, so they got to hire a supervisor. And by the time you get all the way done with this whole process, in order to hire one guy, they need 18 other people working in the bureaucracy to make sure that oversight is enforced and all these other things happen. And that's the unfortunate thing about it, is that we just don't need these agencies. Number one is that they violate the Constitution day in and day out. And the second thing is the legislature doesn't have the constitutional authority to relinquish its own power. It doesn't have the authority to do it, and unfortunately, no one holds them accountable.
Yeah, but you can't. It doesn't say anywhere in the Constitution, I'm going to delegate my lawmaking abilities to bureaucracy A. It doesn't say that. They have to vote.
And more importantly, it doesn't give them the authority to do that.
Yeah.
All laws have to originate, for taxation purposes, must originate in the House. And Mike Lee wrote a fantastic book called Our Lost Constitution. And guys really ought to read that. He did an incredible job of tying back the rationale of why they wrote certain things into the Constitution, and how the government now abuses that, and how we've forgotten the original intent and why we had that intent and all the problems that it's caused. And you touch on an incredible issue that, unfortunately, I think we're too far gone. I agree that I think what is going to be required is a massive amount of civil disobedience. I think it's going to be just people who just ultimately refuse to comply.
Let's talk about Rand Paul. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, Fox News, and I think you even talked about this on your show.
We did.
Rand Paul's being totally ignored, but he's making a huge impact. What is up with Fox? I always thought, yeah, they're fucked up, but man, they really are fucked up.
Yeah, I've been talking with several people who were formerly in media. I talked to Ben Swan not long ago and talked with him about why he left as corporate media. And he said, government really is a disseminator of information now. And when the media receives that information, that press release, they treat it as though it's fact. And either because of laziness or time shortages or poor journalism, they just they don't research it, they don't question. And what happens is that the status quo has a vested interest in making sure that Rand Paul does not get airtime, that he gets no respect, that he's made to look like a fool and a clown and kind of a sideshow. But I don't think people are buying off on it. And maybe I'm a little biased. I really like him. I like Ted Cruz. I think that Ted Cruz, although he has some what I think are very serious problems that I would challenge him on if I had the chance to talk to him, I think he believes in liberty as a primary political value. I do think he is a friend of liberty in the Senate. And if he was a front runner, I would definitely be a supporter of him over anybody else in the field, with the exception of Rand. I just think that the attempt is to marginalize him because he is a threat to the status quo in Washington.
Yeah, and I actually, on your Facebook page, saw that you had posted an article by Rare.us speaking that Fox is ignoring them, but MSNBC is including them. Do you have any comment as to that at all?
Well, I think MSNBC they don't really care. they don't really care they're reporting on what's happening. But I've always said MSNBC is basically, if you want to figure out how the news affects the gay, lesbian, and transgendered segment of our populace, that's what you go to MSNBC for, because the world could be on fire. There could be massive explosions in Seattle, and they could be burning the ground, and MSNBC will be reporting on how it's affecting the transgendered community. And that's fine.
Particularly in Seattle.
Yes.
That's right, and I'm cool with that, because nobody watches MSNBC anyway.
Right.
I mean, our show has about 40,000 people listening to it every single month.
Nice.
It will not be that long before. I mean, MSNBC has like 50,000 viewers a day on their show.
The Jason Stapleton program is doing better than MSLSD.
Well, not on a daily basis. What I'm saying is, it won't be long before we are.
That's right. That's the way to look at it.
And so, I mean, we've been on the air less than a year.
Right.
I mean, MSNBC has been around. The only reason MSNBC survives is because they have subscription dollars. They're on every single package that you get with any cable provider is going to have MSNBC as part of their primary package.
Mm-hmm.
And they're getting whatever it is, 50 cents per subscriber per month for their channel, or 20 cents.
Right.
Big dollars.
Over 50 million subscribers. That's before they run a single ad. You know, that's the only reason they stay in business.
Let's go back to Fox really quick, because I think this is a great point. They were doing the same damn thing to Ron Paul. He was kicking ass. Who's Ron Paul? Fox never talked about him.
I went back to 2008 and I pulled the video after the first debate that they had, and overwhelmingly they said Ron Paul had won that debate when they did the straw poll at the end. And you should have heard Sean Hannity. Just bad. He's like, polls mean nothing. They mean nothing. It's like, what? It's a Republican straw poll.
Right.
What do you mean? Then why did you take the poll? He just refused to give Ron Paul any credit whatsoever, despite the fact that he was raising money at a scale that no other Republican was able to raise money at, and from individual donors, small individual donors. And when it came right down to it, they ended up putting up John McCain and then Mitt Romney, both of which, I mean, who's looking at the polling right now and really thinks, God, Jeb Bush really gets my fire going. You know what we need? Mike Huckabee.
What?
If we could get the huckster to run, if we could just get him through, if we could get his message out, man, that's something America could really get behind.
You know what? They're saying that Jeb Bush is winning these polls. I have never met one dude ever, one person on the street anywhere who says, I support Jeb Bush.
I have been begging anyone on my show, on Facebook, on Twitter. I said, if you are a Jeb Bush supporter, if you intend to vote for him, please send me a note. I want to know why.
Nice.
Who are these mysterious people?
Well, that's the problem. Here's the thing. Most Americans, because you and I, you guys and I are really intimately involved with politics and what's going on in Liberty and around us. Most people are not. Most people are watching the Kardashians. And so what happens is, and they're looking at, some pollster calls them up in the middle of dinner and says, hey, would you vote for this guy, this guy, this guy, or this guy? And the only name that you recognize is Bush. And you're like, well, I guess I'd vote for Bush. And that's the only reason. Bush is not going to be the candidate. He's not going to be.
He's not the guy.
There's no chance.
No.
They need to put Caitlyn Jenner on that poll.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So much courage. But you know what I'm saying?
I mean, here's the thing.
It takes a lot of courage to chop your balls.
What kind of pisses me, you know what? It does, Johnny. It does. Don't pretend like it doesn't. But no, my thing with that was, you got all these military guys who are posting pictures of dudes with no legs and being like, I'm tired of seeing people talk about Kris Jenner and how, and it's like, look, just because you say, look, I feel really bad for Jenner. I think that he's really an emotional wreck. I'm not going as far as to say that he's got some sort of mental disease, but I think emotionally, mentally, he's got some real problems. And I feel bad for him, and I hope that whatever he's done makes him happy. Unfortunately, guys who have these sex change operations are 20 times more likely to commit suicide than people who don't.
Well, and I would just this is completely off topic and superficial bullshit, but I think he spent so many many years, in the shadow of the Kardashian asses that he's like, maybe if I was a chick, I could get back in the limelight. And he is having the best revenge. He's about to have his own reality show.
Yeah.
He's on the cover of every magazine. He's like,
Well, it worked for him, but
Well,
I don't think it's going to work for
her.
But my point was just simply to say, if you say that it takes courage for a man who's been in the limelight, who's a gold medal winner, who's as well known as Jenner is, if by saying, look, it takes courage for a guy to come out and say, look, I think I want to be a woman. I mean, it's okay to say, yeah, it takes some balls. I'm going to tell you, it takes a little bit of guts to come out on national television, being as well known as you are, and say, hey, I've decided I think I'm going to be a woman, and all that goes along with that. That doesn't take away, it doesn't detract from a guy who lost his legs in Afghanistan.
Not at all.
To make the correlation, it's just stupid.
There's no correlation, though, in that at all.
They're both, in a way, courageous. And to try, well, that's not really courage. That's not real courage. Just shut up. Shut up. How many of you guys ever been shot at? How many of you guys making those comments ever been shot at? How many times have you ever been blown up?
Yeah.
And shut up.
Right, exactly. Anyways, Jason Stapleton here. Bam. At the Johnny Rocket Launchpad, dude.
It's a proud day.
It's a fucking great day to have Jason Stapleton.
That's right.
On the goddamn Johnny Rocket Launchpad.
And we are going to market the crud out of Jason Stapleton. There were women at the Libertarian Convention that are just so excited about sexy libertarian men, and we are going to plaster your picture all over. Let me tell you.
I think Heather has yeah, Heather's like, oh, he's a pretty guy. not saying pretty like you're pretty, like you're a dude. You're like one of us.
But own it and sell it.
Yeah, dude.
Hey, I will. As I was telling my audience, this doesn't happen on accident.
Nice.
We got Jason Stapleton on the show.
Thanks for being here, man.
You are the man, dude.
Thanks very much for having me on. I had a blast, and I appreciate everything you guys are doing.
Hey, man, and I'm looking forward to working with you in the future, man. We're gonna keep. I am
too.
LibertyOne.tv. Let's work on that.
We're gonna do some great things together over the next several years. I'm sure of that.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to it, man. And give it up for Jason Stapleton at jasonstapleton.com or check him out at tradeempowered.com. And make sure you check out LifeSpring Ministries. 100% of the money that you donate goes to a child in Africa. Get your wallet out. Donate $5, $10, or even $100. Your money will not be wasted through bureaucracies. Every dime of your money will be spent on a needy child. Visit LifespringAfrica.com.
Hey, also check us out on Revere Radio Network Saturdays at 4 to 6 p.m. and also RadioKSCR.com. We're on there Tuesdays from 2 to 4 p.m. So check us out there.
Kurt Nelson.
Thank you, sir.
Land of Heather. My voice of reason. Heather Nixon.
Hello.
All right. Anyways, thank you very much, Jason. We're going to be right back. We have Band of the Week, so stay tuned.